Famous cycling city. Welcome to Geelong in Victoria. We are about 50 minutes south of Melbourne. A fantastic venue for today's and this weekend's Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. Of course, today it is all about the Deakin University Women's Race, and the stage is set. The weather here in Geelong, absolutely superb. Conditions are great. The riders are ready. The teams are set to go, and we are looking forward to bringing you a fantastic race today. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Beretta. Thanks for joining us on this tremendous coverage of what is going to be a brilliant race across some of the most spectacular countryside you'll see anywhere in the world, the Great Ocean Road here in Victoria. Joining me, world and Australian champion Kate Bates. Kate, this really has got a sense of occasion about it. It's a big race.
Oh, it certainly does. It's so exciting. We have 15 teams racing here, 10 of which are international, 16 different nations represented, world champions, Olympic champions, national champions. It really doesn't get better.
Hard to pick a winner out of this field or a favourite. There are so many that can come up and grab this race. But Amanda Spratt, the Australian, has been in great form from the Santos Women's Tour.
Amanda Spratt, there's no doubting she comes in as a favourite. She won here last year. She's got a great team around her and very confident. But I think some other Australians have some form, and we could look at a clean sweep of the podium.
Which would be fantastic. Let's join Matt Keenan now for a look at some of the race favourites here.
It's time to begin the celebrations. Amanda Spratt goes out the winner.
She salutes the crowd, all smiles. A brilliant attack she made, and she never looked back.
I just love the race, you know, there's so much about it. I know it's a course that suits me, I'm in great form, so I'd love to go back to back, definitely.
Amanda Spratt just won the Women's Tour Down Under and arrives in impressive form.
January, I think, so far has been pretty much a dream start for me, and definitely to get that win last week just gives me a lot of confidence heading into the race.
But with Katrin Garfoot, Janelle Crooks and Gracie Alvin, Team Orica Scott have plenty of options to play.
I'm not the only one that can win. I think that's probably, I guess, tricky or maybe intimidating for other teams, is that we do have a lot of options, and we're definitely going to play that.
Katrin Garfoot, the Australian champion, she's been one of the other big winners so far this season and is certainly one to watch.
It's a pretty strong duo at the moment, and they've been using each other and feeding off their wins too, so they've got a lot of confidence.
It's going to be fierce competition.
There's quite a few UCI teams that have flown over from Europe, the SRAM team as well, so it's just going to be whether some of the strongest sprinters can get over those hills or whether Orica want to break it up, especially in those last few hills leading into Geelong.
Another rider to look out for is the Dutch woman Kirsten Wild from Team Silence, who has just recently won Towards Zero Race Melbourne.
I assume it's when it will play into the hands of the Dutchies.
Kirsten Wild, an impressive 69 career wins. Her, along with her Silence Pro cycling team, will be ones to watch for, along with the Australian favourites.
It's a race that everyone wants to win, and you know, it's one of the first races in the season as well, and it is such a big race in Australia as well, so you know, to win would be a fantastic feeling.
Orica Scott, they do have the favourites, but this race is wide open.
Yeah, it really is. This race only 3 years old in its third year this year, but the field is just incredible, Kate. It is hard to pick a winner out of all of that field, isn't it?
It's hard to pick a winner, and it depends what tactics that they want to take, because the Orica Scott team, they need to make it very aggressive and ditch the sprinters, so to speak. So I think the last 15 kilometres will really be very crucial in Amanda Spratt's defence.
Awesome. It's everything we love about road racing. All right, let's take a look at the track and the map, Kate, for this incredible event, because it takes in some amazing scenery.
Well, they head out of Eastern Park here in Geelong and straight out toward Barwon-Head's hometown of Cadel. Evans, of course, for the first sprint. The picturesque 13th Beach Road, and heading down towards Bells Beach into Torquay. It really depends what the wind's doing here, Mark, because if the wind is quite strong, the riders need to pay a lot of attention. They head up, starts to get a bit lumpier over a QOM, and as they head back into Geelong, it really is the lumpy section toward the end where, well, if the sprinters, they still want to be there, they need to pay a lot of attention, and the teams like Orica Scott, that's their real opportunity.
This is a great cycling city too. They love having these events here. Of course, they hosted the World Championships in 2010. It's the third year of this race. We're expecting big crowds out on the road, and this is a fantastic race to watch because you have so many beautiful places to go and see it. We're at Ocean Road Race for 2017. We are at the start line at Eastern Beach, Geelong. An incredible field, 88 riders representing 15 international teams, some of the best ladies in the world. about to go to work on this 113-kilometre circuit. It is a beautiful day in Geelong. The sun is shining. A little bit of a southerly breeze at the moment. As you can see, there's always a little bit of tension, a bit of excitement on the start line, but there is nothing like the lead up to a race, a road race such as this. The amount of vehicles that are about to roll down the road, the riders at the front, the Peloton all set. And let's go to your commentators now, the international voice of cycling, Phil Liggett, and alongside him, Matt Keener.
And it's a lovely story, Katrin Garfoot. Born and raised in Germany, now very much an Australian. Had the chance last year, there she is now, in Rio to represent Australia at the Olympic Games with a top 10 finish in the individual time trial for Katrin Garfoot.
Yep, she'll be the first to tell you now. She's a Queenslander, and she's having a stellar start to the year. She's really flowered this last few weeks. We'll see how she gets on.
Past winners, Rachel Neylan, 2015, Amanda Spratt last year. Unfortunately, Rachel, she's injured, she can't race today. But for Rachel Neylan in 2015, that was the turning point in her career.
Yeah.
Enabled her to get a spot on the strong Orica Scott team.
And well deserved it was too. She's ridden both years we've had this event, first and a second finish. Sadly out with injury, which is very disappointing because she loves this course. A serious concentration on Katrin Garfoot. Either of these girls could win if the cars drop down in the right order. And the Spratt there.
Weather conditions ideal. Current temperature 22 degrees. It's getting up to a maximum of 27. But more so than whether it's hot or cold, the biggest concern for the riders in terms of the weather is the wind. It was perfectly still this morning. It's now picking up to 31.5 kilometres per hour. That's quick enough to cause some problems and cause plenty of action.
And for those viewers around the world, that's 20 miles an hour.
Strong.
It's strong, it's very strong. And when we all got up this morning, just after 6 o'clock, an idyllic day, no wind at all. But now day has dawned some 5 hours ago, and the wind is getting up. Should lead to exciting racing out on the 13th beach, that's for sure, as the wind comes in.
The riders are ready and waiting for the singing of the national anthem by Grady Mitchell.
And oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soil and wealthful toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair in joyful strains, and let us sing. Advance Australia fair.
Grady Mitchell singing the Australian national anthem, and Cadel Evans continues to tell the story about the goosebumps when he stood on the start line in 2015 in his final ever race, and he heard the national anthem sung.
Inside 2 minutes to the start. A little bit of neutralized, about 3.5 kilometres before the flag goes down. Then it's 113.3 kilometres to be completed. 90 seconds to go. Tense moments. So women's racing are really launching into a great season here in Geelong. Should be good.
And lots of last-minute eating and drinking.
Very important. Paul Sherwin always says, Matt, they're eating for tomorrow, not for today. Except this isn't a two-day race.
It's a one-day race. But
all or nothing today.
Well, another one that Paul famously says is, if you wait until you're hungry, it's too late. If you wait until you're thirsty, it's also too late.
Absolutely right. There are 2 sprints along the way for the GmbHA sprint competition. Also counts with the finish line sprint as well. 1 Subaru King of the Mountains at Bells.
2017 has stepped up to ride with the Orica Scott team. Last year she was with the High Five Dream Team. We're just on 30 seconds before they...
For Peter Mullins. Inside, we're on the countdown. Here we go.
2, 1.
And the Deakin University Elite Women's Road Race is underway, kind of. 3.5 kilometres of neutral just to get through the city of Geelong. Then once the roads open up a little bit more, then that neutral red flag will come in and then we'll really get started.
Tomorrow, the World Tour will continue in the men's department, and they will ride the same 113-kilometre circuit, but they will have a 60-plus kilometre add-on with 3 20-kilometre finishing circuits. Chris Froome's in town, the Tour de France winner, so too Esteban Chavez. But today it is the women on parade. 88 riders, 15 teams, and this course makes it a great race. It's a very aggressive course.
And 17 nationalities represented, so it very much is an international race, and it's gotten stronger every year. You can see the white colours on the right-hand side. That's the Oceania Road Champion. That's Shannon Mulseed, who's had an outstanding start to the season. 3rd place in the criterium at the National Championships in her hometown of Ballarat, and just missed out on a medal with a top 5 finish in the road race as well.
Well, I'm pleased you told me that, Matt. I've never seen the Oceania Road Race Champions jersey before.
Well,
is it always white and blue?
Yes.
Oh. Well, Shannon, we followed all year. The last month we've seen her race, and racing with quite a lot of good results. So we'll see how she was a medalist in the National Championships. Here's the teams for you as we flash them through.
Wiggle high five, team number 1, because they're number 1 in the world rankings. They've been the strongest team over the past few seasons. A few teams in there from the United States. United Healthcare is always a strong squad. High Five Dream Team is like a development squad for many of the rising stars of Australian cycling. Holden Women's Racing, they've got some good, strong young riders as well. 37 Australians, 13 Americans, 8 Brits, 8 Kiwis, 6 Italians, 5 from the Netherlands, 3 Germans, 1 Dane. And then there's a list of just 1 rider from a variety of nationalities. The Belarusians are here, Lithuania, Poland, Belgium, Mexico, Canada, Switzerland, Japan. It really is a very international field.
Superb field. This is Australia's summer of cycling, and once it's all over, everybody, men and women, disperse across Asia into Europe as the seasons open up across the world. But it all starts here and now.
Subaru, red lead vehicle. The gentleman that you see sticking up out of that is the race director. That's Scott Sunderland. He's a former Australian road champion. He's ridden with many of the biggest teams in the world. And importantly, Scott was a sports director alongside the likes of Fabian Cancellara and the Schleck brothers when they were winning some of the biggest races in the world. So he knows how to call the shots as a sports director. Now as the race director, none of those team managers will be able to pull the wool over his eyes.
I'll second that. And Scott was a great bike rider too. Taking them out in the backdrop there is the bay around Geelong. This is into the Botanic Gardens, bottom end of the road. They use this circuit in a criterium once a year as well. Little hill comes round to the left of our picture. A lovely ride out of town this. We could have raced this really. It's a beautiful circuit.
Well, there was that Criterium series that you speak of, the Mitchelton Bay Cycling Classic, that got the season started. It started right here in the heart of Geelong on Ritchie Boulevard on the 1st of January. Importantly for Amanda Spratt down in Port Arlington, the most significant stage, the most difficult stage of that series, she went out the winner and she won on her own. And everybody else in this race is well aware of the form of Amanda Spratt, also the recent winner of the Women's Tour Down Under, and she did that relatively comfortably with a big solo breakaway on the first serious road stage.
She's a lone break specialist, and she hits them hard towards the end of the race, and this is a perfect course for Amanda. If she gets a chance, she'll go again. She's won this course on this course before. She was last year's national champion, and this year she finished 2nd, but to her teammate Katrin Garfield in a sprint.
The rider just getting out of the saddle in the black colours of the Wiggle High Five team, that's the Danish rider, Julie Lee. Good, strong track cyclist. She won't like the climbs towards the end of the race. I get the impression, by the way, she's so close to the lead vehicle whilst they're in the neutral zone that she might be among the first to attack. The hay bale's out, making some sort of a decoration.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what it is. It's very nice.
It's like Mr. Swiggle, upside down, Miss Jane.
There's Garfoot there in national colours for the first time as road race champion. did the double still less than a month ago, in not too far away, about 80 kilometres away in Buninyong and Ballarat.
There's accommodation within the Botanic Gardens here in Geelong where some of the teams have actually got themselves based. The Holden Women's Racing team is one of those. And as we've mentioned with them already, they've got Emma Pooley on their team, who won't be racing with that team throughout the whole season. She's really just here for a few of the key races at the start of the Australian summer. It's such a great opportunity for the young riders on that squad to learn from one of the very best, a woman who's been a world champion. She won that title here in Geelong, so she arrives with fond memories. She has said, though, that some of the young riders on that team are actually much better at riding position in the peloton than what she is, because they've taken it up at a younger age, and she's a little timid when it comes to the crosswind and fighting for position. And given the weather conditions, we might see a few crosswinds to do battle in throughout today's race.
Yeah, silver medalist in the time trial. Didn't quite work out for her in London, just missed the podium with the 4th place, but she's more a lone operator. That's why if she's going to win today, it'll be on her own. She's not a great tactician, she's a strength rider. We'll see how she goes. She can't fault the weather. It's a bit colder back home where she comes from in Yorkshire.
I'm sure that's part of the attraction, while many of them have chosen to visit Victoria. The fluoro colours of LA Cipollini off to the left-hand side.
Most seen colours in the peloton, that's for sure. And he could well be delivering today. Chloe Hoskin, also Janneke Ensing, the Dutch girl, is riding extremely well. She's on that squad. And Carly Taylor, another Australian. No Valentino Scandalara, not too sure why. She was here early on in the season. She left soon after the start of the year. Gone back into Italy, I presume.
Yeah, she's joined a new team this year. She's now across onto the team of the great Mariana Vos, one of the greatest cyclists of all time. An extraordinary record Mariana Vos has got. A world champion in just about every discipline of the sport.
Yeah.
Scott Sunderland, the race director, is on race radio, letting all the convoy of cars know that they are approaching the end of the neutral zone and the flag is about to come in.
And for the 3rd year, the Deakin University Elite Women's Race is about to get underway. Scott Sunderland will just make sure the road is clear before he pulls that flag in. This is probably a good day for the sun to be shining, otherwise it's got to be rather wet now.
This is one of the most nervous moments for the race director, making sure it's all safe. Once he gets in the car and the race is on, he's got the confidence that the women will be aggressive in racing and that the course is clear. The flag is waved, the race director gets into the car, and the Deakin University Elite Women's Race is underway.
113.3 to give it its full title to go. And, well, no immediate attack. So often in men's racing, you'll see them start to issue some sharp sprints off the front. But no, they might be a bit worried about when we get out to Barwon Heads. It's always windy there, exposed riding, and the peloton really gets it tough.
Well, you can see once we get out past the houses and then they start to make that journey down towards Barwon Heads. In the first 2 editions of this race, on both occasions, we were expecting the action to happen just after Barwon Heads along 13th Beach, but it's happened before Barwon Heads on that long, straight, exposed stretch of road. I imagine that most of them, they've done their homework and they're worried about that portion of the race.
The young Kiwi squad on the front. Michaela Harvey is the lead girl here. Sitting behind her, the Aussie champion. That's a bit of an Antipodean spearhead at the head of the peloton just now. Over the years, Geelong has really consolidated as a cycling city, having brought the World Championships here. The first time they've been held in the Southern Hemisphere back in 2010. Great races, all of them, provided us with terrific champions, and that was when they caught the bug. And this, I guess, is something of the legacy, thanks to Cadel Evans putting his name to it after his retirement and victory in the Tour de France.
Look at the position of Katrin Garfoot in the green and gold colours as the Australian national champion. The way she's hunched over the handlebars, and the bike, she's already fighting with it somewhat to stay out of the wind as much as she can.
But she's not afraid to ride right on the front from the go. I mean, I think she might be wise just to drop back a little bit and just save a bit of energy for later. We'll see. Just moving up on the outside there, the Orica Scott riders. I think that's Annemiek van Vleuten, who's just moved up on the outside. You might recall Annemiek was the woman who had that horrendous crash in the Rio Olympics coming down towards the finish. It seems she was on a certain gold medal and she slammed into a wall and trees as she didn't make one of the bends. Terrible, terrible crash, and she's totally recovered. Terrific.
It was amazing the way she came back so quickly after that horrific crash and won the Tour of Belgium. And out here, she's been in Australia and New Zealand for the past 2+ months, and she's really enjoyed it. And she's looking forward to getting back to Europe, and one race in particular, the Amstel Gold Race. For the first time this year, they'll have a women's version of the Amstel Gold Race, and she desperately wants to win it. We're joined in commentary by a woman who herself is a former Australian road champion, multiple Olympic Games representative, and a world champion on the track in the points race. Kate Bates, the race is underway. You're on the comfortable side of the fence now with Phil and I. What's your prognosis for the race? How do you expect it to unfold?
What a beautiful day for a bike race. I think that the sprinters are in with a really good shot today. The last 2 years, we've only seen solo breakaways win. But it really depends on the motivation of the teams. The good news, though, is that really suits the Australian riders either way. Orica Scott, they have a big advantage with a lot of options in their team. Their very on-form Amanda Spratt and the national champion Katrin Garfoot, of course, headlines an incredibly strong team. But the Silence team, they have Kirsten Wild and Ale Cipollini. Well, Chloe Hosking has just been improving day by day. She likes these longer road stages. And if it gets a bit tough out there, well, I don't think she's too phased.
The rider that you see at the front, the black and green colours, that's Jasinska from Poland, riding for the Silence Pro Cycling team. A lot of the attention so far has been on Kirsten Wild from that squad. But let's not forget the Brit, Phil. Danielle King, who was third here last year, Olympic Games gold medalist from London. It's hard to overlook an Olympic Games gold medalist.
You must never overlook Danny King because she's a very aggressive bike rider and she's a good sprinter as well. And she could go with a move towards the end in this race. And as you say, Matt, yes, she was third last year. All outwitted by the lone break at the end by Amanda Spratt. Just looking here at the peloton, they're just doing steady tempo at the moment. Nobody too keen on launching an attack. They're waiting for a change of direction or wind. It won't be too long before we do just that. Heading out onto the Bellarine Peninsula.
There's a real sense of anticipation, Kate, about that crosswind, as nobody wants to attack at this stage, but they're fanned out across the road to try and improve their position and get towards the fronts.
The wind has picked up, but the riders would have had their team meetings well before they realised how windy it was meant to be. The weatherman threw them a bit of a curveball and said it would be wonderfully quiet out on course, but we've seen the wind pick up here at the start line, and we have heard reports that down at Barwon Heads and Torquay it is quite windy.
We'll find out soon enough, as you can see those bright colours of Ale Cipollini. A few riders in that team to protect. Chloe Hosking is certainly amongst them. The Holden Women's Racing team, they're controlling the peloton at the front.
The hammer is down in the Deakin University Women's Race here at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race weekend. This is the course. They are currently just on the outskirts of Geelong. If you know the city, just coming through Belmont at the moment, heading towards Marshall. Let's rejoin Phil, Matt and Kate.
Well, the racing is underway. We're at 107.9 kilometres to go. It was calm early. They've made the turn away from the houses with that little bit of protection from the wind. It's up around that 30 kilometre per hour mark. We've seen the Orica Scott team come to the front, led by the most experienced rider on the team, Annemiek van Vleuten, the former world's #1, so close to Olympic Games gold medal in Rio prior to that horrific crash on the final descents. But now that they've contained that move, Kate Bates, the rest of the peloton are breathing a slight sigh of relief, but making sure they don't make a second mistake. They're all wanting to get to the front.
For now, I think they can sigh a little bit of relief, but Orica Scott need to be a little bit careful how they play their cards. They've already all of the onus for the race is on their back.
Well, one guy who really likes racing under these sorts of conditions where you have to fight for position is one of the greats of Australian cycling.
Three-time Tour de France winner, Robbie McEwen. He's out on the motorbike. What do you make of it so far, Robbie?
This is the Total Rush team that is now attacking, and it was here last year that they
Did exactly the same thing, and they did it with Bridie O'Donnell, who formed a significant gap and was able to go out as the winner of the GM
HBA sprint classification, which is the first prize that's up for grabs. The first of those sprints is in around about 17 kilometres time when they go through
Barwon Heads. So perhaps, Kate, there's a few riders out there that don't believe they can actually win the race outright. So they're aiming for the sprint prize or the Queen of the Mountains prize.
It's also a very good opportunity for the local teams. There's 15 teams in the race, 5 of which are Australian teams, one of which, of course, is Orica Scott, our international World Tour team. But for the other 4 teams, they need to get the jump on the field, and often going out early. If they have 1 or 2 riders from the bigger teams join them, they may just survive until the end. If they sit back and wait until the very end of the race, tactically they're not putting themselves in the best position to win.
Well, the woman that attacked from the Rush women's team was Winanda Spur, who celebrated her 26th birthday yesterday. And Phil,
no prizes for guessing where she comes from. She's Dutch.
Yes, the only Dutch girl on the team, and she got straight down. They just got that move going, and they changed direction into the headwind, which rather sported, and that's why we've Concertina back. And I think the women at the back were rather pleased about that change of direction.
So far in the race, the 2 opportunities where it's been exposed to the wind, it's been Dutch women who have caused all the action.
Well, I think a name that we won't see on the front until perhaps the very end is Kirsten Wild. She is one of the favourites if it does come down to a sprint today. Phil, she knows how to ride in a crosswind better than anybody. But there's some climbs toward the end, so she also needs to be quite smart and conserve some energy.
I think it would be the downfall of her, in all honesty. Those climbs are very steep towards the end. But if it came to a sprint, there's no doubt she's the woman on form, as she showed us on Australia Day.
Well, the first of those intermediate sprints for the GM HBA sprint classification, that comes at Barwon Heads, a popular tourist destination made famous by the television show as well, Sea Change, and caused a lot of people to make that decision and take the sea change and move down to the beach. It's also the spot in the world where Cadel Evans has chosen to live, at least when he's in Australia, and he's had the opportunity to go all the way around the globe, and he has chosen
Have a go. She's on the Hagens-Berman Supermint team, which is an American setup, and she's got plenty of her teammates around her on this. Have a go. She's on the Hagens-Berman Supermint team, which is an American setup, and she's got plenty of her teammates around her on this moment in time. It's a nice reshuffling here. Minda Murray, Australia, on the Rush team. She's come up to the front. Still well down the sprockets, even though they're on the big chain wheel here, so they're into this wind.
This is Liza Racchetto,
who's a late inclusion into the team. She's been here all summer and she's been racing well, but she wasn't on the original start list. She certainly is.
Kate, circuit racing, riding position is all important. She'll probably like the wind.
I think the wind, it has a different effect on different riders, and one thing that we can't discount is the mental effect that it has. A lot of riders are quite intimidated, not only by the strength of the wind, but also what it means.
From LA Cipollini, the ever-talkative Carly Taylor.
She does love a good chat. Even out on the bike, it's hard to shut her up, but she loves racing. Today is going to be, it's an interesting course for her, Matt, because the climbs certainly suit her, but the crosswinds not so much, and the descents toward the end not so much, but you can't dampen her spirit. She's very motivated for a team win.
For a rider like her, when we had the chance earlier on to take a look at the elevation on the course, the part that most people would enjoy, she doesn't. Then you get to the part that most people won't enjoy with all the hills at the end, she does enjoy.
That's the way to be. Inside 105 kilometres still to ride. This is one big circuit here. We're in the general direction for a little way now, as we've got this wind keeping the race together. Then it'll change as we swing out towards the beaches and into Barwon Heads.
15 kilometres before we hit the intermediate sprint in Barwon Heads. It's outright.
Well, that's an interesting observation, and I can't disagree with you. Amanda Spratt, 22 kilometres an hour. They're not moving that fast. I wouldn't quite say they're relaxed, but they are cautious of what's coming up.
It's a blockhead wind at this point. There's Amanda Spratt wearing number 21, right alongside the current Australian national champion. And her heart rate was just 120 odd beats per minute, and that's quite low, quite comfortable. This is Liza Ricciotto, the late inclusion, and she's making her presence felt early. She's got Janelle Crooks from Orica Scott sitting on her wheel.
And that little attack has split the field momentarily. They're going to fight to repair the damage, but it might hurt later on.
Well, they've closed it down quickly. Will there be the counter-attack, which is always the classic move? It's on page 1 of the race hand manual on how to go about it tactically. Wait for somebody else to attack. When they get caught, you go.
It's always a great idea to attack in and around an intermediate sprint. Tensions are quite high, to go over the top of the riders going for the sprint. Matt, you mentioned that if we don't see Kirsten Wild sprinting, it could be an indicator that she doesn't back herself for the race. On the flip side of that, a rider like Chloe Hosking, she often uses intermediate sprints to test the legs and to see how she's going. So if we see Chloe testing the legs a little bit, that may be an indicator that she does think that she can go for the race win today.
She was 4th here last year, Chloe Hosking. She had a top 10 finish around the course in Buninyong that doesn't suit her at the national championships. And she rides for the team with the brightest colours, the LA Cipollini team. It is an Italian squad. Just inside 102 kilometres remaining. There's been a few attacks with a little bit of crosswind that we've seen so far. But as they head down towards Barwon Heads for the first of the GM HBA intermediate sprints, it's a blockhead wind. So it's the calm before the storm.
The bright colours of the LA Cipollini team, they're marking the fronts, and now the attack is on.
Spoor.
And this is
Not
yesterday's birth woman, Spoor, a Dutchie as always. The big attacks so far have been by the Dutch, and this is no exception.
Do you know what Spoor means in Dutch? Track
team. She's been recruited to this team just for the Australian summer. They had a big impact on the race last year when they got Bridie O'Donnell into the breakaway. She managed to win the intermediate sprint classification, and they're looking to do a similar sort of a ride today. Being closed down though by the Canadian
National champion. She's doing the chasing.
Yes, and she shut it down very, very quickly there at the moment. Mackay. They're getting very, very twitchy now. They're trying to reposition and launch more attacks.
Ideal form. She bounced back after that though and collected a bronze medal at the World Championships in the individual time trial. But Kate, she was less than 10 seconds away from gold and being crowned the world champion.
It was so close. It was a year of mixed fortunes for Katrin Garfoot, who started 2016 hoping for a spot on the podium at the Olympic Games. That wasn't to be, but she certainly held the motivation and came good for the World Championships, and she's kept her form for a spot on the podium at the Olympic Games. That wasn't to be, but she certainly held the motivation and came good for the World Championships, and she's kept her form for a spot on the podium at the Olympic Games. That wasn't to be, but she certainly held the motivation and came good
for the World Championships. And she's kept her form, a tremendous ride at the National Championships, and that's why we can see her, number 23, wearing the green and gold National Champions jersey.
So they've made their way out of Geelong. The flag came in after the 3.5 kilometre neutral section. As soon as they turned down towards Barwon Heads and there was a little bit of crosswind, we saw the Dutch woman Annemiek van Vleuten go to the front, try and cause a split. We've seen another Dutch woman, Wanda Spoor, launch a few attacks to try and get away, force a breakaway, but it hasn't eventuated as yet. They're not too far, though, from Barwon Heads. Around about 11 kilometres before they make the right-hand turn onto Hitchcock Avenue and the first of the intermediate sprints.
Keep an eye on this left-hand turn coming up, because it'll put them in the crosswinds again, and it could be crucial right now. This is Sofia Navarro, the Mexican woman, on the Showa 2020. Very successful team last year.
And just behind her in the pink colours is Alan Skerritt, young Queenslander, who's riding her last ever race potentially today. She's going to stop racing after today. Let's see what happens long term.
Well, we still hope not. She's a very talented young rider. She's come through a great development path with Cycling Australia, and they're very famous camps at the AIS. I went to call it a torture camp. It's not quite, but it's something akin to that.
Yeah, it's not a camp, it's a torture test.
Yeah, it definitely weeds out the weakest.
The Wiggle High Five team, the black colours, coming through to the front. This is Amy Roberts, one of the British riders on that team. The world's #1 ranked team.
Yes.
Just inside the last 100 kilometres. So those little attacks to try and get away. There's a lot of teams that are keen to make sure that if a break goes, they at least close it down or they're represented. And with a headwind, it makes it so hard for one or two riders to steal a march on the peloton.
A lot of the bustling that happens before an intermediate sprint is not about getting points in the sprint itself. It's about making sure that if an attack goes, they're following it.
Do you know what, Matt? These women have worked out they're coming up to this left turn. They're racing to the left turn because they know the wind will change direction. And that's causing these counter-attacks to make it hard, because if you come off that bottom bend at the tail, you're working for a kilometre to recover from it.
It's just a gentle left-hander as they make their way through a roundabout. It's Tiffany Cromwell who has gone to the front and is really forcing the pace.
Typical Tiff. There's the left-hander. She's looking over. Oh, it's not. It's a roundabout. Oh, are they going through it? They're coming off to the left. No, they come off to the left. This should see the difference in the wind direction now.
Now as they do make that turn, this is the point in the race, the first edition of the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race with the Deakin University Elite Women's Race, where we saw some splits and we saw a few crashes. And now as it's a wind that is slightly hitting them from the side, this could cause a few problems as the German national champion has come to the front.
Mika Kroger, she's a very strong rider. She's very savvy. She loves the wind. She's right in her element here, and she's got the field strung out significantly. They're single file. We haven't seen this in the race yet. Orica Scott, they made this move earlier, but they didn't string it out quite like this. The gap's opening up, Matt Keenan. Orica Scott, we don't want to see them dropping wheels. This stage in the race, that's already very dangerous.
And for Kroger, this isn't exactly what she wants. She actually doesn't want to necessarily go on her own. She wants a few riders with her, and she wants that split to be in about 5th, 6th or 7th position.
But it is quite a show of strength that she didn't actually attack. She just sat in the seat and turned it up like a diesel motorbike and rode essentially off the front. Now, Janelle Crooks for Orica Scott and Amanda Spratt, they're right up there paying attention. But I think we've just seen a vulnerability in the Orica Scott team and the broader peloton for what could happen in the upcoming wind.
We have, this is Scanlon Bloor at the back of the group, just trying to hold on. Desperate moments as they head towards Barwon. On the way into Barwon Heads, and the crosswind is having a major effect. The Australian champion Katrin Garfoot rolling through at the front, and the peloton, it started as 88, it is now being disintegrated, and we're still a long way away from even hitting the hills.
So just look at the splits now. Brilliant riding by the women. The strong ones, the tactical ones, knew exactly what was coming at the left turn of that roundabout. They piled the pressure on it as they approached the roundabout with Canyon. The strong ones will out now. Look down the road there, Katie.
Well, down in amongst it is a man that would have loved racing in these conditions. Green jersey winner at the Tour de France, Robbie McEwen. The race is being blown apart. And there's Gracie Alvin that Robbie speaks about. She's second in line, former Australian road champion. And it brought a smile to my face when Robbie said that Gracie told her she wasn't happy with the lack of wind in the morning. I saw her at breakfast as well. She said the same thing to me. This is Annemiek van Vleuten now, the Dutch woman at the front, really opening the throttle.
Takes a turn on the front and takes 2 lengths on the rest of the breakaway there, because that's a very workmanlike group now, and I think unless they change direction very quickly, they are not going to recover from this one. It's a major attack. All the fit women, the stronger Burdure riders have got themselves into this.
As they turn onto 13 Beach Road, they'll get a bit of reprieve from the wind. But the damage has already been done, Phil. The riders who have been dropped, even if they were to come back to this main bunch, a lot of damage has been done to their legs and to their confidence. And there's been a big gain of confidence from the riders that have been forcing this split up the front. Katrin Garfoot, she just looks so comfortable. We've still got 93 kilometres left to race, but the bunch has been split from 88 down to 25, 30 odd. Matt Keenan, this is a huge move and early in the race.
And here comes one of the favourites, fourth from last year in the LA Cipollini colours. That's Chloe Hosking, a winner on the Champs-Élysées last year at the end of the Tour de France with La Course by the Tour de France. The South Australian now coming through to the front in the black colours. That is Tiffany Cromwell. Lisa Brennau, one of the contenders, the German. She is super strong. And Kirsten Wild now comes through, the silver medalist from the World Championships last year, the winner of Towards Zero Race Melbourne. She is in really good form.
And the cars are in, which means they've got quite a significant gap here. Not as much as they might like. There are 25 women in this group at the moment, as far as I can see, and that's a nice little group. A few trying to get across and repair the damage. They've got a long way across no man's land. There's the rest of the peloton. They've not given up. They're still racing down there. They might get back if we change direction.
But importantly, in terms of the cars, it's only one of the race official cars and some neutral service. They haven't allowed the team cars to come through, which would close down that gap and provide some shelter from the wind and some stepping stones, like a game of Frogger, for those that have been dropped to work their way back to the head of the race.
Well, and generally the cars are only allowed behind the breakaway when the gap reaches over a minute. We can see that the gap is opening significantly, but it's not a minute. There's so many groups out on course still.
This is Luseta, the Lithuanian national champion, now coming through to the front. One of the teammates of Chloe Hosking. And there's Bowen Heads, the beautiful Bowen Heads off in the distance. And the first of the GMHBA intermediate sprints awaits.
Well, it will be a beautiful sight for the riders who are chasing. They'll know that they'll change direction, and that wind will help their cause somewhat.
And two of the fastest sprinters in the race, two of the fastest sprinters in the world, Kirsten Wild and Chloe Hosking, are both in that front group.
They're in plumb position. They're both very smart bike riders. Kirsten Wild is, of course, Dutch, and Chloe has sharpened her nails on the Dutch racing scene, so she knows exactly how to deal with wind, and her team, they're very supportive of the cause here today, so she has a number of teammates up there.
And here's the chasing group. Rushley Buchanan is going through. She's the New Zealand national champion. There's some strong riders in that group that have missed it. Rebecca Wysack is there, dual world champion in the individual pursuit on the track. So some good riders have missed out on the move.
Well, they're 15 seconds off the pace. This group might get across. There's one or two strong women who could carry them over here. We're heading right down into Barwon Heads now. We turn right in Barwon Heads. Heads are on the left, and then the wind again will change direction. But the gap has opened significantly. This is a very... Shadow boxing is off now. They're giving everything they've got to establish a gap.
And once they do go through Barwon Heads, I'm looking forward to seeing what the wind...
Together, Matt, we might look at 40, maybe 50 riders heading down on 13th Beach Road.
Peter Mullins, she's made the lead group. Australian champion from 2015.
I think the strong women, the women who came here to race hard, have got this split because they were always already at the front. That's a kilometre to go to the sprint, just caught out the side of my eye. We're being told that there are huge crowds waiting for the race coming into Barwon Heads as well. So this is the home, of course, of Cadel Evans, the man who's put his name to this weekend of racing. And the Peloton, that's the main field down there, beginning to fan out and slow down a bit, I think.
Well, not too far away from that sprint. They make the right-hand turn.
On down there, beginning to fan out and slow down a bit, I think.
Well, not too far away from that sprint. They make the right-hand turn on
Rock Avenue, and then we turn on the 13th Beach, and it's exposed again to a big crosswind. You could pay the price and lose contact with the front of the race.
The motivation for these riders will definitely not be the intermediate sprint. It's a wonderful prize to get along the way. If the group was all together and the conditions different, perhaps. But for these riders, it's just about jockeying and positioning to make sure that they are in the right spot when the conditions are tough, when the crosswind comes. The intermediate sprint, we might see Chloe Hosking jump out, test her legs a little bit. Kirsten Wild, she's there as well.
Actually, there's more than 30 riders here right now. I don't think anybody's got across yet. We've got that group of 9, which has got them in their gun sights. They might make it. That will still leave us with 40 riders in the front group, and that surely will be it. We've got to move on the left, have we?
Janelle Crooks looks like she's trying to move forward, perhaps to just try and sneak across that finish line in first place. And now Chloe Hosking starts to open up the sprints. There's a few in there that do want to try and collect the points. They've been waiting patiently, and now they do start the sprint to collect the points in the race for the GM HBA Intermediate Sprint Prize.
Chloe took the points there ahead of Peter Mullins, and it looks like Janelle Crooks came across in 3rd place. We wouldn't call that an aggressive sprint at all, Matt, but it's good to see the ladies have a bit of a go and just see where their legs are at. Chloe Hosking, we know she's motivated here today, and it is quite like her to have a bit of a dig. She's one of those wonderful sprinters with a bit of ego that likes to look around the bunch and say, I'm on form, come and get me.
It was the sprint version of a game of chicken. No, you go first. That looked like fluoro vest, just getting out of the way at the last minute. Let's hope it wasn't one of the race officials, as we see one rider from LA Cipollini go the long way around the roundabouts.
It's one of those scenarios, you get halfway round, you look across your shoulder and realise everybody else has taken the shortcut, but it's too late.
Now this chase group at 16 seconds, this is their moment to pounce. In fact, it's less than 16 seconds now. It's closer to 10 seconds. But Canyon SRAM, they know that once they get past this line of trees at the caravan park in Barwon Heads, it's out on the 13th Beach. And as picturesque as it is, they won't get to enjoy it because it's always windy. Here's a look at the GM HBA sprint once again. Chloe Hosking at the last moment getting her nose in front with Janelle Crooks and Peter Mullins in the minor placings. They waited and they waited. They don't want to spend any unnecessary energy.
I'm pleased to see Chloe really testing her legs, albeit for only about 100 metres, but it is a show of confidence to me that she feels good about her chances out on course today. The LA Cipollini team, there are 4 of them in that front group. Orica Scott, I've seen 5 of those riders, so they still remain the dominant teams in that front break. Phil, Canyon SRAM, they've also got a lot of numbers up there and looking good. Silence for Kirsten Wild. I've only seen a couple of those riders, so that may be a bit of a tactic challenge for them as they come toward the end and through the climbs.
Well, Canyon SRAM, they had the plan. They caused the split. It was that great move by the whole team were present. The split came, and they deserved to have the number of riders from their team in this leading group. 88 kilometers out. You saw the right turn from the helicopter. You see how barren it is out this way. It is a beautiful area, and it's a very, very popular training area for the club cyclists out of Geelong here. But the wind usually comes in off the coast. This group is getting across, 9 riders. It'll give us around about the work as well, trying to finish what they've started here. There's how exposed it is.
Well,
and they're going to get a howling tailwind, of course, as we race away.
The beach is stunning, but the riders won't get to enjoy it today. You can go left onto the beach or right and onto the golf course.
They've done it. 87 kilometers to go. About 40 riders in the lead.
And then there's the long look down along 13th Beach. One of the great holiday destinations, just around about an hour and a half to the south of Melbourne. On here. This is Loretta Hansen now going through to the front in the blue colours. And that second group, they've now returned. Number 111 at the back of the group, Rebecca Wysack, who is originally from Geelong, now lives in Canberra, but she's a dual world champion on the track and trying to make that transition to the road. You can sympathise with that, Kate.
She's made a wonderful transition. She's very strong, especially in road time trials. What she lacks is the experience on the road, so I don't doubt that she has the legs to be able to stay in that front group when the pressure is applied, but what she may not have the experience to do is find the right bunch position. She's made her way back to that leading group, but it would have done some damage to have to chase for as long as they had to.
It's not a done deal yet. You can see the main peloton are coming back. Officially, they're 16 seconds down. Might be even a little bit closer now. There is a real chance this field will regroup.
Well, if they've lost their impetus at the front of the peloton, they've kicked the clutch in just a little bit. They realise there's still 86. Well, they're making their way along Barwon Heads, out of Barwon Heads and along 13th Beach. Small group of 2 have gone off the front. They've just gone through the first of the GM HBA intermediate sprints through Barwon Heads. And it was Romy Casper from the LA Cipollini team who went across the line in first position, ahead of Annemiek van Vleuten of Orica Scott, with Peter Mullins in 3rd position. Well, that tells us a little bit about the strategy and the belief of Chloe Hosking and Kirsten Veal, 2 of the fastest sprinters back in the peloton, who we expected maybe to be involved in that intermediate sprint. They're saving themselves because they think they can get to the finish line of the Deakin University road race in first position in Geelong. They're not worried about the intermediates.
And as the race is panning out, Orica Scott and Ale Cipollini are certainly showing themselves as 2 of the strongest teams out on course. Canyon SRAM, of course, have been very important in forcing that earlier breakaway, but it's Rush Cycling and Silence who are on the move now. Ellen Skerritt, she's riding a slightly bigger gear than Barbieri, looks to be labouring a little bit more at the back of the bunch here. Well, they're not even pedalling, Phil. They look to be taking it very easy.
I think 2 is a good combination for the peloton. They're not going to worry too much about 2 women getting away on this stage of the race. They've still got 2 hours of racing left to go, and they're sort of blocking off at the front here. Rachel Barbieri and Skerritt. Not 2 of the marked women in the race. They decided to take the pressure off themselves, and I think these 2 probably will gain time for a moment.
This is Emma Poole in the black colours of the Holden Women's Racing Team down towards the back. The world champion in Geelong from 2010 in the individual time trial. Erin Keneally is the rider that's with her, the big Western Australian. She's had a really good start to the season, Kate, Erin Keneally. She hasn't had a big win yet. She's been so aggressive, she's been close, she's been in just about everything.
She had tremendous form at the Tour Down Under. You can see the difference in body shape between Emma Pooley and Erin Keneally there. Emma Pooley Of course, a little pocket rocket who can climb. She's won Giro d'Italia's the Women's Grand Tours. She's been world champion before, a duathlete. Very handy runner as well. Erin, she is just a very big, strong rider. I would not like to try and chase her through a crosswind. She needs a bit more experience to understand her capabilities, but she's a rider much like the German champion Mika Kroger, who we saw force the break earlier. But
a big reputation. She's too young to have built one, but she's certainly developing one pretty quickly.
And she's got quite a reputation of a lot of talent. She's a track rider. You can see from her pedaling style, she has quite a high cadence. She pedals quite quickly. It makes her look very comfortable on the bike. Helen Skerritt doesn't have a background in track, but she is a very strong road rider. And their difference in style just indicates their background. The bunch, Phil, look at them. They do appear to be enjoying the scenery as much as we are.
Yeah, they shut down now. 50 seconds, it'll soon be a minute. They're not chasing this one, they're waiting and watching. It's a little tactical battle amongst the race favourites now, taking the pressure off themselves for the moment. And they could get a couple of minutes here.
Well, it's an ideal situation for the race favourites, because these aren't two of the favourites. There's only two of them, so they could build up a 2, 3, 4 minute lead. But they'll run out of strength in the end, surely.
But it's a very good move for Kirsten Wild, though, because the Silence team are represented in the front. There's now no onus on them to do any work at all to chase. That onus largely sits now on Canyon SRAM, on Orica Scott.
If you do come down here and ride your bike, you can avoid this right-hand turn and just go straight across the road, as there's a nice bike path which will cut out a couple of kilometres and make the journey between Barwon Heads and Torquay a little easier. I can recommend it.
I imagine there'd be a few of the ladies in the field who are thinking about what's to come and hoping that they get some sort of reprieve. Nobody detouring onto the bike path, thankfully.
We make our way away from 13th Beach.
Left-hander, she's looking over. Oh, it's not, it's a roundabout. Oh, are they going through or are they coming off to the left? No, they come on.
This is the first serious move of the day. It was Kroger, the German national champion, that put the race in the gutter once they were exposed to the crosswind. They'll quickly join the Canyon SRAM team by Orica Scots. Also up towards the front, we saw the LA Cipollini team making sure that they were strongly represented. At this point, heading towards Barwon Heads, the race was blown apart into 3 or 4 distinct groups. Then at the first of the GMHBA intermediate sprints, it was Romy Casper who stuck her nose in front. It was Annemiek van Vleuten in second position, followed then by Peter Mullins. Once they made their way out of Barwon Heads and onto 13th Beach, the big peloton all rejoined, and now it's a breakaway group of 2 with Barbiera in the black and green colours, the young Italian, and Skerritt in the pink colours of Rush Cycling, the Queenslander, who have managed to open up an advantage of almost 1 minute with 80 kilometres still to race. This is the Deakin University Elite Women's Road Race as part of the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. And it's fitting that Deakin University are the sponsors of this race, as Tracy Gaudry, who is the Vice President of the UCI and the first woman to be on the management committee at the UCI, got her degree from Deakin University and originally was from Geelong.
Yes, when she was called Tracy Watson, I believe.
Correct.
Little split in the field there, more an ambling off the front rather than seconds, very, very quickly indeed. And it's primarily the work of Orica Scott in the green helmets here, deciding they don't want anybody to escape. A bit surprised about that.
There's no opportunities to rest. So when that break of 2 went up the road, not 2 of the big favourites to win the race, thinking perhaps this might be a chance for everybody to sit back, relax for a while, let that group drift out to perhaps 2, 3, maybe even 4 minutes. Orica Scott, they've got other ideas.
Well, they're keeping the pressure on. They don't want to arrive at the finish with a very fresh Chloe Hosking and Kirsten Wild. And in order to do that, every single kilometre counts. The upcoming climbs, they count. Orica Scott, they are all over this, Matt. Tactically, they know exactly what they need to do. It's a hard day out for them if they want to get the victory, but it's definitely possible.
33 seconds now as the advantage continues to tumble. Barbieri at the front, the look across the shoulder, and Skerritt wouldn't dare look to go over her shoulder and see the peloton quickly closing in. The breakaway group of two, Skerritt and Barbieri, they've been caught by the peloton, which once again, as soon as they make a turn and get exposed to some crosswinds, the throttle is intensive. The LA Cipollini team just making sure that they're keeping their big favourite, Chloe Hosking, the Canberrian, up the front, out of trouble.
And that's all they want to do, Matt. They just want to keep Chloe out of trouble. They don't want to ride on the front and use all of their energy toward the end of the race, through that lumpy section and back into Geelong. That's where they'll really need Chloe to be very fresh if she's going to be able to hold on and come into Geelong and make it a sprint finish. But Orica Scott, the onus is on them to really force the pace, and they've been doing that all day, so I don't doubt that that's exactly what they've got in mind. They need to get rid of those sprinters.
Both Robbie McEwen and I had the opportunity to speak to Gracie Elvin independently at breakfast this morning, and Robbie reported that the message back from Gracie Elvin was she was really disappointed when she opened up the curtains in the morning, looked out the window and saw that it was a perfectly calm, still day. She had the same complaint to me about the lack of wind. She's got her wishes, it has sprung up. Robbie McEwen is out on course, triple green jersey winner at the Tour de France. Robbie, we've seen a lot of action. At the moment, it's all back together. Was there any in the world? As quick as Robbie was, his reputation was for being one of the smartest bike riders in the peloton. The black and green colours of the Cy Lance team, of course, any in the world. As quick as Robbie was, his reputation was for being one of the smartest bike riders in the peloton. The black and green colours of the Cy Lance team of Kirsten Field, they're working their way through to the front, protecting the Dutch sprinter.
Well, when the bunch split earlier heading into the first sprint in Barwon Heads, we didn't see a huge amount of numbers from Cy Lance. A couple of the riders actually moved, missed the break, and I think that would have made Kirsten Field pretty nervous. She may have ducked back and said, come on guys, we need more numbers at the front. So they're all moving to the front to protect her in a similar way that Chloe Hosking is being protected by the LA Cipollini team. 24
kilometres per hour, the wind, it doesn't sound like much unless you're out there in it trying to fight for position at the front.
That's all that matters. It's a crosswind that counts. The strength's not quite so important. But once you get into that crosswind, it seems that the Canyon SRAM team are up for the fight, and Tiff Cromwell always puts up a good performance. She has done these past 2 years in this event, and this year clearly no exception.
This is brilliant racing. This is where they are as they're heading towards Torquay. That will be where we've got the second of the GM HPA intermediate sprints. It's then on to Bells Beach for the Subaru Queen of the Mountains. As they head down through Mauriac, they've got the feed zone, and there's an opportunity through the thick eucalypt trees down there to get a bit of rest from the wind. And then as they hit the outskirts of Geelong, it's exposed once more, and then they've got the climbs. But what is really happening at this point is the battle for the front and protection from that wind.
And look at the split again forming. These women have just rejoined and they're back on the defensive here now. LA Cipollini up for the fight. So too are the Orica Scott team. These are the strength of this peloton, and they are the drivers of it, and they're not going to desist here. This is another good push. 74 kilometres out from home, about an hour and 50 minutes of racing left, so they're going to keep the pressure on.
This is Chloe Hosking at the front. She was fourth here last year, but significantly she was amongst a group of 5 riders sprinting for 4th place. The others had to get away from her to beat her. Third from last year, Danny King. She's still comfortably placed in the peloton. So too is last year's winner, Amanda Spratt. But it seems like there's a lot of focus within that race from Orica Scott and also Canyon SRAM on Chloe Hosking and trying to get away from her.
Orica Scott have a lot of options today. National champion in the looking resplendent in the green and gold, Katrin Garfoot. Some local pirate ship here. I don't think the riders are taking in the scenery, but it is gorgeous down on the coast.
High tide 5 years ago, I think.
The Orica Scott team, they have a lot of options, Matt. They've got Katrin Garfoot, Amanda Spratt, Gracie Elvin. We've barely mentioned her. She's a multi-time national champion. Carly Taylor, she's just ducking off the front there. I don't think she means to be doing that. She'll turn around in a moment and... Hey guys, what are you doing?
She's an important rider for LA Cipollini today, because as much as we've spoken about Chloe Hosking from that team, the South Australian will be just hoping to survive these crosswind sections and then look to get into the action once we hit the climbs. Robbie McEwen down there in amongst it. What a race we've seen so far, Robbie.
Well, Matt, every time we get an open section of road that wind can really play a role. It's Ale Cipollini, it's Canyon Stram and Orica Scott taking full advantage. You see, even in the headwind sections, and no matter if there's a little break off the front like we saw a few minutes ago with Skerritt and Barbieri, the bunch are just racing to the course, and those riders and those teams in particular are using every opportunity they get to split things up. They're not worried if it's only a short section, because they know every time they do it, it contributes to making it a really hard race. And that seems to be the sign coming from Orica Scott. They just want it as hard as possible. We spoke earlier about Gracie Elvin wishing for wind. Well, she got her wish. The other thing for Orica Scott, they need it hard, because Gracie told me, basically we know if Katrin Garfoot and Amanda Spratt stand on the pedals once we hit the local circuit, they're going to ride everyone out of the wheel. They just want a hard race, deaden everybody's legs.
Did you hear the joy in Robbie's voice at the end when he said deaden everybody's legs? They are hoping, the Orica Scott team, to make this race as difficult as they can to give Amanda Spratt and Katrin Garfoot that opportunity to ride away solo once they get into the outskirts of Geelong and hit the finish line, in their eyes, hopefully in first position.
Just a reminder to our viewers in Western Australia to continue watching the Deakin University women's race. Switch to 7 now. So viewers in WA, now is the time to switch across to 7 to keep watching the race.
You shuffle down the tail there, anxious to get away from the sharp end of the whiplash if these attacks are going to continue. It's still a very respectable speed, this race, and now they're waiting. It's calm before the storm, if you like. The blue jerseys are the American squad of United Healthcare, trying to get back up there. Most of them travelling in from the States.
Rushley Buchanan from that team, but in the white colours with the black as the New Zealand national road champion. She missed
3 champions in a row there.
Yes.
Lithuania, Germany and
New Zealand.
Yeah.
She missed the first split, and then we're seeing her experience, the 29-year-old Kiwi. Once she managed to rejoin, she's always been at the front. She will not miss the split again if she can help it. It's going to come down to her legs, but tactically she won't be making that same mistake twice.
It's the 3rd time she's been the New Zealand national road champion. She's one of the savviest and most experienced riders that New Zealand has produced. She's a world medalist on the track in the team's pursuit. She's a very classy rider. We saw her at the Tour Down Under film. He's watching.
There were 1 or 2 caught out, and they've learned the lesson. They're not going to ride at the back at the next time the splits occur, and they will change direction pretty consistently.
For the second of the intermediate sprints, this is Chloe Dygert, the 20-year-old, who is a star of the future, and
Absolutely.
I know there's big raps on her.
Big raps on Chloe. I've seen her race all over America, and she is a real strong bike rider. She looks pretty cool here just now.
This is one of the more experienced Americans. That was Starla Tendergreen that was sitting behind her. Liza Riccietto is in 3rd position. Late addition to the team.
If we look closely, we can see a few grimaces on faces. So while it may appear as though they're just cruising along and waiting to head into that second sprint in Torquay, I think the pain is already starting to show.
They head straight down this road. They get to a roundabout at the end of it and make the right-hand turn along the Esplanade and then in towards the shops in Torquay for the intermediate sprints.
Just coming back briefly to Dygard, she was a world junior road and time trial champion, and last year was a brilliant occasion for her because she led the foursome from the USA to their first ever World Team Pursuit Championship. That was a huge result for them in Qatar. No, where was it? It wasn't Qatar.